The open ocean was a terrifying void for early sailors, a place where getting lost meant certain doom, yet they sailed anyway, armed with 21 incredible ancient navigation tools that completely reshaped our world. By the end of this journey, you will understand exactly how these forgotten inventions unlocked the entire planet. We will uncover how a simple crystal could guide Vikings through fog, and why a knotted string was once more valuable than gold. What does it truly mean to find your way when every horizon is unknown? That mosaic of uncharted territories was not merely a blank space on a map, but a canvas for human ambition. Empires rose and fell on their ability to master the seas, and this age of exploration was driven by forces deeper than simple curiosity. It was a perfect storm of desire for exotic spices, the pursuit of new knowledge, and the relentless push for territorial expansion. From the vast star-reading canoes of the Polynesians navigating the Pacific to the rugged longships of the Vikings daring the North Atlantic, every civilization that touched the water developed its own unique way of confronting the abyss. Think of the legendary Chinese Admiral Zheng He commanding a colossal fleet of treasure ships, or Christopher Columbus setting sail for the edge of the known world. Their voyages were acts of incredible courage, but courage alone was not enough. They were utterly dependent on a suite of rudimentary, yet revolutionary tools. The creation of these instruments represented a profound fusion of disciplines, where the precise observations of astronomers met the skilled hands of craftsmen and the abstract logic of mathematicians. This was not just a technological leap, it was a cultural renaissance born from necessity. These tools became the very lifelines of empires, the invisible threads that began to weave our world into a connected global society, enabling an unprecedented exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures. And the story of this great transformation begins not with a complex machine, but with one of the simplest and most profound instruments ever devised by human ingenuity. Held in a sailor's hand, the astrolabe was more than brass and artistry. It was a portable universe. This intricate disc, perfected over centuries by Islamic astronomers who built upon Greek foundations, gave mariners the power to hold a map of the heavens right in their palm. By suspending the instrument and aligning its sighting rule with the sun or a known star like Pelorus, a navigator could measure its altitude above the horizon. That single angle, carefully read from the engraved scales, revealed their latitude, their north-south position on the vast, featureless ocean. It transformed the sky itself into a fixed, celestial signpost. Think of Portuguese caravels venturing down the uncharted coast of Africa, each captain lifting his astrolabe to confirm his progress and avoid being swept helplessly past his goal. This was not just a tool for measurement, it was an analog computer that combined the functions of a clock, a calendar, and a star chart into one revolutionary device. The knowledge it provided was a form of power, directly enabling Europe's age of exploration and the forging of global trade routes that would forever change economies and cultures. Without this precise celestial guide, those early voyages might have remained tentative coastal hops, never daring the open ocean crossings that reshaped our world. Yet for all its brilliance, the astrolabe had a critical weakness. It required a steady platform to yield an accurate reading, a near impossibility on the heaving deck of a ship in rough weather. This single limitation pushed innovation forward, leading to the creation of a new instrument designed for the challenging reality of life at sea. That very challenge of a shifting deck led to the cross-staff, a brilliantly simple tool that brought the heavens closer to a sailor's grasp. Picture a long wooden rod marked with measurements and a sliding crosspiece that a navigator would move back and forth. By placing one end of the staff against his cheek and carefully aligning the top of the crosspiece with a celestial body like the sun, while the bottom edge met the horizon, he could read his latitude directly from the scale. It was a direct application of basic geometry, a tangible triangle formed between the sailor's eye, the star, and the edge of the world. Developed in the 14th century, this instrument was a workhorse of navigation, prized for its ruggedness and straightforward design. On epic voyages like those of Vasco da Gama, who charted a sea route from Europe to India, the cross staff was an essential companion. In the vast, empty expanse of the Indian Ocean, where no landmarks existed to guide the way, this simple angle measurement was the only thing standing between the crew and becoming hopelessly lost. Yet this powerful tool came with a personal cost. To use it meant staring directly toward the sun, a practice that over time could lead to serious eye strain and long-term vision problems for a navigator. It was a constant trade-off, a moment of necessary risk to secure the safety of the entire ship and its mission. This drive for greater accuracy with less personal hardship would soon push mariners to refine the design once more, leading to an instrument that better protected the user while capturing an even clearer reading of the sky. The navigator's back was now his greatest asset. With the invention of the backstaff in the late 16th century, sailors could finally turn away from the sun's punishing glare. English explorer John Davis designed this clever tool, often called the Davis quadrant, to solve the very problem that plagued users of the cross staff. Instead of squinting directly at the sun to measure its height, a mariner would stand with the sun behind him, using the instrument's shadow to find his position. He would adjust a sliding vane until the shadow's edge lined up perfectly with the horizon line visible through a sighting slit. This single act of turning his back was a revolutionary act of self-preservation, dramatically reducing the risk of blindness and making long-term navigation a more sustainable practice. The backstaff used a series of precisely engraved arcs and movable vanes to triangulate the sun's altitude with impressive accuracy. This was not merely a matter of comfort, it was a leap in precision that made transoceanic voyages far more reliable. For ships crossing the vast Atlantic, where a single degree of miscalculation could mean missing a continent entirely, this improved tool was the difference between discovery and disaster. It translated the sun's dangerous light into a safe, measurable shadow, guiding entire fleets toward new worlds. Yet even this brilliant use of celestial bodies had its limits under a cloudy sky or in the dead of night, pushing explorers to seek a guidance system that worked even when the heavens were completely hidden. While the backstaff conquered the sun, another instrument was quietly mastering the darkness. The magnetic compass provided a truth that never faltered, a small, floating needle that held fast to the north regardless of cloud cover or the time of day. This was not just a tool, it was a constant companion in the chaos of the sea. Its origins trace back to ancient China during the Han Dynasty, where geomancers first discovered that a lodestone, a naturally magnetic rock, would align itself with the world's invisible fields. These early compasses were often simple magnetized needles floating carefully in a bowl of water, a humble beginning for a device that would ultimately rechart human destiny. European sailors, encountering this technology through trade and cultural exchange, recognized its profound potential. It transformed navigation from an art of educated guesswork into a reliable science, giving captains the confidence to hold their course across thousands of miles of open ocean. Consider a Viking longship battling the fog-shrouded swells of the North Atlantic, its navigator watching a sunstone fade, now able to trust the steady pull of a magnetized needle pointing the way toward Greenland. Or picture the ships of the Age of Discovery, their helmsmen relying on the compass to maintain a westward heading through weeks of unrelenting storms, a journey that would have been unthinkable without this fixed reference. What would exploration have been without this silent guide whispering direction in the midst of a gale? The compass made the sea a predictable grid, a place where a course could be set and held with unwavering faith in a fundamental force of the planet. Its influence is so enduring that its core principle guides everything from a smartphone in your pocket to the most advanced aircraft. This earthly anchor, however, soon demanded a partner, a tool that could translate its steady direction into a detailed picture of the world, leading navigators to the next great leap, the art of mapping the heavens themselves. That small wooden board held at arm's length was a merchant's secret to fortune. The camel was a masterclass in elegant simplicity, a tool born from the bustling trade winds of the Indian Ocean. An Arab or Indian navigator would hold the rectangular card up to his eye, its string pulled taut between his teeth. He would slide the card forward or backward until the North Star, Pelorus, appeared to rest exactly on its top edge, while the horizon lined up with the bottom. The specific knot held between his teeth instantly told him his latitude. Each knot was tied to represent a known port or headland, a tactile memory system woven into string. This was not an instrument for academics, but for practical men on the water, enabling them to sail directly to a market in Zanzibar or a spice port in Gujarat with remarkable consistency. Consider the legendary traveler Ibn Battuta, whose epic journeys across the 14th century Islamic world relied on such unassuming technologies. For decades, the camel was his silent guide across the Arabian Sea, a sea that was not a barrier but a well-traveled highway connecting continents. This modest device did not just measure stars, it measured trust, allowing merchants to reliably deliver their goods and fostering an unprecedented exchange of ideas, languages, and cultures. Its legacy is a powerful reminder that the most transformative innovations are often those that solve a complex problem with profound simplicity. Yet, while the camel charted a path across known seas, another instrument was being developed to visualize the entire world, transforming abstract measurements into a concrete picture a sailor could hold in his hands. On a deck shrouded in darkness, a navigator's hands moved over two interlocking discs of wood or brass, aligning a pointer with the unmoving heart of the night sky. This was the Nocturnal, a starlit clock that transformed the slow rotation of the heavens into a measure of time. By sighting Pelorus through a central hole and aligning a pointer with specific stars in the constellations Ursa Major or Ursa Minor, a sailor could read the local hour directly from the instrument's calibrated scales. This was not a simple sundial, but a portable observatory that worked long after the sun had vanished, bringing a semblance of order to the disorienting night watch. Its value went beyond mere timekeeping, as knowing the local time was a crucial, though indirect, step in the desperate struggle to calculate longitude, a mariner's greatest and most elusive challenge. Imagine a Portuguese caravel in the mid-Atlantic, its crew relying on the nocturnals reading to coordinate their 4-hour watches, maintaining the ship's rhythm and discipline through weeks of unbroken ocean. The quiet mastery required to use this instrument speaks to a deep, intimate knowledge of the sky, a relationship built on patience and repeated observation. While the Nocturnal elegantly told time by the stars, another instrument was designed to capture the sky itself, creating a permanent and precise record of the celestial map for anyone to follow. But the delicate astrolabe needed a tougher sibling for the brutal reality of the open ocean. The mariner's astrolabe was a brute of an instrument, a heavy disc of brass or bronze designed for one purpose: to stay steady in a gale. Where its predecessor was an intricate work of art, this was a tool of pure function, often with a thick, weighted base and a pierced design that allowed the wind to scream through it without knocking it over. A navigator would suspend it from a ring, waiting for a precious moment of relative calm on the heaving deck to sight the sun through its two aligned vanes. The angle read from its engraved scale gave that all-important latitude, a single data point of sanity in a world of chaos. This was the instrument trusted by explorers like those in Magellan's fleet, men who faced the vast, empty expanse of the Pacific Ocean for the first time. For them, the mariner's astrolabe was not just a tool, it was a lifeline, the only thing connecting their tiny, vulnerable ships to the predictable mechanics of the cosmos. Its evolution was driven by the sailors themselves, with later models shedding complex decoration for bold, easy-to-read numbers that any crewman could interpret quickly. Can you fathom the profound relief of seeing that solid brass ring steady itself, of finally getting a clean reading after weeks of dead reckoning and fear? That moment of celestial confirmation was a psychological anchor as much as a navigational one. Yet, even this robust device had its flaws in heavy weather, forcing sailors to seek guidance from a source far closer to home, the steady, predictable winds themselves. A ship's speed was a mystery that could mean the difference between finding a new world and vanishing into the endless blue. The solution was brilliantly uncomplicated: a wooden board, a rope, and a simple sand timer. This was the log line, the original speedometer of the seas. Sailors would heave a weighted, triangular piece of wood over the stern, allowing it to remain relatively stationary in the water as the ship sailed away from it. A rope with evenly spaced knots would pay out through their hands, and they would count how many knots slipped past during a precisely measured half-minute Sandglass. That number gave the ship's speed directly in knots, a unit of measurement born from this very practice, and one we still use today for air and sea travel. This humble tool was the engine of dead reckoning, the vital process of calculating a ship's position based on its last known fix, its compass heading, and the distance traveled. Without it, a vessel was essentially guessing its way across an ocean. Consider the meticulous voyages of Captain James Cook, whose detailed charts of the Pacific Islands were made possible by the constant, repetitive use of the log line. His crew would cast it regularly, their chants marking the knots, building a cumulative record of miles that transformed vague estimations into a reliable plot on a map. This steady collection of data allowed them to avoid the catastrophe of overshooting a tiny, life-sustaining island by hundreds of miles. How did a knotted rope become a cornerstone of global exploration? Its power lay in its democratic simplicity, requiring no special knowledge to operate, only a careful hand and a watchful eye. It translated the abstract force of the wind in the sails into a tangible number, a fundamental piece of the navigational puzzle. Yet, knowing how far you had traveled was only part of the challenge, especially when the unseen depths below held their own hidden dangers. The ocean floor was a hidden landscape of mountains and valleys, and knowing its shape meant the difference between a safe harbor and a splintered hull. For this, sailors trusted the lead line, a tool of profound simplicity that reached down into the abyss. A sailor would stand at the ship's rail, heaving a heavy lead weight attached to a long, meticulously marked rope into the water. The line itself was the map, with bits of cloth and leather tied at specific intervals, each marking a known depth in fathoms. As the weight sank, the sailor would feel the line go slack the moment it hit the bottom, reading the depth directly from the nearest marker. But this tool did more than just measure. Its hollow base, packed with tallow, would bring up a sample of the seabed. A captain pressing his thumb into the wax would find it coated in sand, mud, or crushed shells, each substance a unique signature of his location. For Phoenician merchants cautiously approaching an unfamiliar coast, that handful of grit was as good as a street sign, telling them they were near the silt-rich mouth of the Nile or the rocky shores of Greece. What unimaginable risk did a captain take, sailing blind into a bay with no knowledge of the shifting shoals beneath his keel? The lead line was his insurance, a direct physical connection to the unseen world below that allowed for the cautious, deliberate exploration which built the first maritime trade routes. It turned the terrifying unknown of coastal waters into a manageable, charted space. This intimate knowledge of the immediate environment, however, soon gave way to a tool that expanded a sailor's vision far beyond the horizon, guiding him by the light of a distant fire. A ship's compass told you where north was, but it could not tell you the precise angle to a distant lighthouse or a hidden reef. The Pelorus solved this problem with elegant simplicity. Often called a dumb compass, this instrument was a fixed card mounted on the ship's deck, marked with the same degrees as a standard compass rose. Its key feature was a pair of sighting vanes that could be rotated to line up with any object on the horizon. Once aligned, the navigator could read the relative bearing directly from the card. This reading was not a true direction from north, but a precise angle relative to the ship's own bow. When used alongside a nautical chart, this single bearing became a powerful line of position. By taking bearings on two or more distinct landmarks, a navigator could draw those lines on his map, and the point where they intersected revealed the ship's exact location. This process of triangulation transformed the uncertainty of coastal piloting into a precise science. In the crowded, tide-swept waters of the English Channel, or threading through the treacherous coral islands of the Caribbean, the Pelorus was indispensable. Naval commanders relied on it to maintain tight formations, ensuring their ships held a perfect line of battle without drifting into a catastrophic collision. Can you see how this tool turned a chaotic seascape into a geometric puzzle, where every headland and buoy became a fixed point in a calculable network? Its focus on relative bearings and visual alignment set the stage for the next great navigational ally, a force that filled the sails and guided entire fleets across the globe, the wind itself. That circular diagram on a map was far more than decoration. It was a portrait of the atmosphere's will. The wind rose, the direct ancestor of the familiar compass rose, gave sailors their first systematic understanding of the planet's breadth. Originating in the Mediterranean with classical cartographers, this tool depicted up to 32 directional points, each one often illustrated with the face of a wind god or a symbolic creature to make the complex patterns easier to memorize. Before the compass gave them magnetic north, mariners navigated primarily by these winds, learning to read their seasonal shifts as clearly as a roadmap. This knowledge was meticulously encoded into Portolan Charts, those incredibly detailed sailing instructions that guided ships from headland to headland. A captain planning a voyage from Europe to the Caribbean would consult his chart, see the wind rose, and know to drop south to catch the easterly trade winds, a highway of air that would push him reliably across the Atlantic. Christopher Columbus's entire westward strategy depended on this environmental wisdom, using charts that told him not just where to go, but when to sail to harness the ocean's great aerial currents. Can you conceive of setting out across an entire ocean with only your understanding of the wind as your engine? The wind rose transformed the invisible and often fearsome force of the weather into a predictable, charted ally. This deep awareness of environmental patterns, of reading the world itself as an instrument, naturally required another device to measure the most crucial element of any journey, the relentless passage of time. A ship's bell would ring out, marking the end of a 4-hour watch, its rhythm dictated by the silent, steady fall of sand. the Sandglass was the relentless mechanical heartbeat of any vessel at sea. Crafted from two glass bulbs joined by a narrow neck, this humble timer measured fixed intervals, most commonly 30 minutes, with unerring consistency. Since the Middle Ages, its purpose was absolute, to impose order on the formless passage of time across trackless oceans. A designated crewman, often the ship's boy, held the vital duty of flipping the glass the very instant the last grain fell, a cycle repeated without end through day and night, calm and storm. This monotonous task was the foundation for nearly every other calculation on board. When paired with the log line, the half-hour glass transformed a knotted rope into a precise measure of speed and distance. Without its reliable measure, the intricate practice of dead reckoning would have been pure guesswork. The Great Spanish Armada, a fleet of over 130 ships, depended on this synchronization to hold its complex battle formations across the English Channel. In the thick of fog or the darkness of a moonless night, the shared understanding of time, marked by the turning of the glass and the ringing of the bell, was the only thing preventing catastrophic collisions in a crowded fleet. Can you feel the immense pressure on that young sailor, knowing the entire ship's navigational plot relied on his unwavering attention to a trickle of sand? His diligence turned a simple timer into a lifeline. This mastery of measured time, however, soon merged with a profound observation of the natural world, giving rise to a tool that was as much a work of art as it was a scientific instrument. These charts were not mere drawings, they were functional databases of the known world. A navigator's eyes would trace the intricate web of room lines radiating from multiple compass roses scattered across the parchment, each line representing a constant compass bearing. To sail from Venice to Alexandria, a captain simply had to follow the specific room line connecting the two ports, a direct and repeatable path etched in ink. This was a radical departure from maps filled with sea monsters and speculative lands. These charts were built from the hard-won experience of thousands of voyages, a collective memory of coastlines, harbors, and safe anchorages. Originating in 13th century Italy, they were meticulously drawn on durable vellum made from animal skin, ensuring they could withstand the rigors of a ship's cabin. The work of Genoese and Catalan cartographers did not just serve Mediterranean traders. Their charts became vital for European explorers venturing into the Indian Ocean, where they integrated Arab and local knowledge to create the first truly global sailing directions. Can you see how this tool transformed the sea from a realm of myth into a network of predictable routes? It turned navigation from an intuitive art into a calculated science, where risk was managed with lines on a page. This detailed artistry, focused so intently on the world's coastlines, naturally led to a tool that looked upward, one that measured the sun's own journey across the sky. A Viking navigator on a fog-bound sea held a translucent crystal to the sky, its surface seeming to capture light where none was visible to the naked eye. This was the legendary Sunstone, a tool spoken of in Norse sagas that may have been made from a clear calcite or cordierite crystal. On days when the sun was completely hidden by cloud or mist, this stone did not show the sun itself, but revealed its hidden signature. By rotating the crystal and observing subtle changes in light intensity and color patterns within the mineral, a skilled user could detect the polarization of sunlight, a phenomenon where light waves align in a specific direction as they pass through the atmosphere. This gave a rough but reliable bearing, a line pointing toward where the sun was hiding, allowing a navigator to maintain his east-west orientation across the vast, featureless expanse of the North Atlantic. This was not magic, but a profound application of natural physics, a way of seeing the unseen. Imagine the sheer advantage this provided to Viking explorers, enabling them to launch their longships toward Iceland, Greenland, and even the coast of North America when other sailors would have been forced to wait for clear skies. How many settlements and trade routes were established because of this single, enigmatic stone? Its very existence, still debated yet supported by both saga and a growing body of archaeological research, speaks to a sophisticated understanding of the environment that we are only now beginning to fully appreciate. This mastery of light itself guided them across the ocean, but another invisible force, the water's own hidden pathways, demanded its own form of measurement. A ship could be sailing with a perfect wind, yet find itself losing ground against an invisible river in the sea. The current rose gave form to this hidden force, a diagram on a chart that mapped the ocean's silent, powerful highways. Appearing alongside wind roses on medieval Portolan charts, this symbol illustrated the prevailing directions and strengths of ocean currents, turning an unseen challenge into a charted variable. Knowledge of a current like the Gulf Stream was a navigator's secret weapon, a thermal river that could add precious knots to a ship's speed or, if misunderstood, sweep it hopelessly off course. Early Pacific Islanders did not wait for European maps. They built a profound understanding of these flows through generations of oral tradition, reading the subtle signs of driftwood, bird migrations, and water temperature to navigate their vast ocean realm. This accumulated wisdom was later formalized by European cartographers, whose charts began to show these aqueous pathways. Spanish galleons laden with treasure relied on this intelligence, using the equatorial currents to slingshot themselves across the Atlantic toward home, turning a potential hindrance into a powerful ally. Can you imagine the frustration of a captain watching his sails fill with wind, only to see his intended landmark slowly recede on the horizon because of a contrary current he could not see? The current rose provided the answer, allowing for strategic course adjustments that accounted for the push and pull of the planet's circulatory system. This mastery over hydrodynamic forces required a partner, an instrument of impeccable accuracy to measure the angles that would keep a ship on its newly calculated path. A simple quarter circle of wood or brass gave sailors a direct line to the heavens. The quadrant was an instrument of elegant geometry, an ancestor to the astrolabe that traded intricate complexity for rugged reliability. A navigator would hold the flat edge of the quarter circle up to his eye, sighting the sun or a star along the upper edge while a weighted plumb bob hung freely from the apex. Where the string crossed the graduated arc on the curved edge, he could read the celestial body's altitude directly. This single angle, captured with nothing more than gravity and careful alignment, revealed his latitude. Its origins stretched deep into antiquity, but it was in the Islamic world and later medieval Europe where the quadrant was refined into a truly portable tool for both land and sea. Imagine an Arab trader on a dhow sailing the Swahili coast, using his quadrant to confirm his position relative to the equator before making for the bustling port of Mombasa. Its straightforward design made it accessible to sailors who were not master astronomers, effectively democratizing celestial navigation. How did a plumb line and a carved arc bridge the gap between scholarly instruments and the hands of everyday mariners? It transformed an abstract calculation into a physical, visible measurement that anyone could learn to perform. This very simplicity allowed knowledge of position finding to spread across cultures, from the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean, weaving a shared understanding of the sky that connected distant peoples. As we near the end of our journey through these transformative tools, we encounter a device that offered guidance not by sight, but by listening to the whispers of the deep. The silence of a foggy sea was a navigator's deepest fear. When sight failed entirely, sailors turned to sound, using the resonant clang of a bell or the low moan of a horn to feel their way through the blinding whiteness. These were not mere signals, they were auditory lifelines, essential for gauging distance from a hidden shore or avoiding a catastrophic collision with another vessel lost in the same murk. Since ancient times, bells were mounted on buoys marking treacherous shoals or on coastal promontories, their familiar tone cutting through the fog to announce safe water or imminent danger. From the ship itself, a crew would sound their own horn, a deep blast that communicated their position and intent to any other soul navigating the same invisible maze. In regions like the perpetually misty North Sea, these sounds were the thin line between a successful voyage and a maritime disaster, so vital that lighthouses eventually integrated massive horns and bells into their warning systems. Early American colonists, understanding this need instinctively, would often ring their church bells steadily during a thick fog, the sound from the steeple guiding weary merchant ships toward the safety of their harbor. Can you hear the profound relief that familiar chime must have brought to a captain completely blindfolded by the weather? This reliance on hearing reminds us that navigation was a full-bodied experience, a symphony of senses working in concert to interpret a hostile world. And just as sound measured the immediate environment, another tool sought to measure the powerful, unseen force that governed the very tides, the rhythmic pull of the moon itself. That wooden board nailed to a harbor post held the secret to a port's daily rhythm. The tide board, or its counterpart, the tide table, was an early form of data display, translating the moon's relentless pull into practical instructions for any captain. In coastal communities from the North Sea to the South China Sea, these tools were developed through generations of careful observation, listing the predicted times and heights of high and low water for a specific location. They transformed the chaotic-seeming rise and fall of the sea into a predictable schedule. Historians note that in bustling, treacherous waterways like the Thames estuary, these boards were displayed prominently, allowing shipmasters to plan their arrivals and departures with precision. A captain consulting the board knew exactly when the rising tide would provide enough depth to clear a sandbar, or when the ebbing current would offer a swift, fuel-saving exit to the open ocean. This was not just about convenience, it was about survival. Running aground on a falling tide could mean a wrecked ship and a lost cargo. For the massive Chinese junks navigating the intricate, silt-filled river systems of Southeast Asia, this tidal knowledge was absolutely essential, turning unpredictable deltas into efficient trade corridors. How did understanding the moon's pull turn into a strategic advantage? It allowed fleets to move with a confidence that seemed almost supernatural, harnessing a planetary force to dictate their maneuvers. This deep reliance on celestial cycles to read the water's movement naturally connects to a final, brilliant form of ancient guidance, one that looked not to the skies or the seas, but to the instincts of the animals that lived within them. A bird carried a map in its bones, a biological compass that guided entire fleets home. The messenger pigeon was not a crafted instrument but a living, breathing component of a ship's navigation system, a creature whose instinct for home provided a vital link to the known world. For a Roman galley commander or a Polynesian voyager, releasing one of these birds was an act of faith in a deep, ancient intelligence. The bird would rise, circle once to orient itself, and then fly unerringly toward its loft, sometimes hundreds of miles across trackless water. This was a crude but effective form of position reporting, a biological signal flare that could announce a discovery, call for supplies, or confirm a ship's general location to those waiting on shore. Historians of animal partnerships note that explorers mapping scattered archipelagos found these birds indispensable, as a single successful flight could transform an unknown speck on the map into a confirmed, reachable destination. Norse sagas speak of explorers like Floki Vilhjaldason using released ravens in a similar way, watching the birds' flight path to find the nearest land during their daring crossings to Iceland. What immense trust did a navigator place in a creature he could not control, releasing his only connection to rescue into the vast sky? This practice underscores a profound truth about ancient wayfinding, that it was a dialogue with the natural world, leveraging the innate abilities of other species to overcome human limitation. It was a creative, almost symbiotic form of navigation that highlights the sheer ingenuity of our ancestors. This biological ingenuity, however, would soon be paired with a tool of pure mathematical precision, an instrument that could plot a course not by instinct but by calculated angles and unwavering logic. A wooden board pierced with concentric rings of holes hung near the ship's wheel, its surface a silent record of every turn. The traverse board was the ship's memory, a physical data logger from an age before digital storage. Throughout the 16th to 18th centuries, at the end of each half-hour watch marked by the Sandglass, a crewman would drive a peg into one of 32 directional holes around the board's edge, documenting the ship's average heading during that interval. A separate row of holes tracked the ship's speed, with pegs representing the knots measured by the log line. This created a cumulative, tactile map of the entire watch's journey, a series of vectors etched in wood and string. On the sprawling, multi-year voyages of Arctic whaling ships, where the sun could vanish for months and the magnetic compass danced erratically near the pole, this board was an anchor to reality. It allowed the navigator to sit in his cabin after a foggy week and physically reconstruct their winding path through the ice, peg by peg, knot by knot. How many expeditions were saved from vanishing into the white nothingness because of this methodical record-keeping? It transformed the chaos of a long journey into a structured log, a foundational practice that would eventually evolve into the ship's formal logbook. This humble pegboard represents the very essence of dead reckoning, a testament to the power of cumulative data, and this steady accumulation of practical knowledge, of blending observed data with emerging science, set the stage for the ultimate navigational instrument, one that finally solved the ancient riddle of longitude by merging celestial mechanics with precise timekeeping. This dark, unassuming rock held a secret force that would steer the course of history. The lodestone was the original heart of the magnetic compass, a naturally magnetized piece of iron ore that ancient cultures from China to Greece viewed with a mix of scientific curiosity and profound reverence. Its mysterious power to attract iron and align itself with the world's poles seemed nothing short of magical. Navigators did not just use it as a tool, they carried it as a talisman, a physical piece of the planet's invisible energy. Before the crafted brass compass existed, a simple lodestone suspended on a string or floated on a piece of wood in water would swing to point north, offering the very first glimpse of reliable direction. The Chinese, who systematically documented its properties during the Han Dynasty, understood they were harnessing a fundamental force of nature. This knowledge slowly traveled the Silk Road, reaching European sailors who saw in the lodestone a solution to their greatest navigational peril, the loss of direction under starless skies. Medieval ship captains kept these special stones in protective boxes, using them to stroke and re-magnetize their iron compass needles during long voyages, ensuring their most vital instrument never lost its guiding voice. What did it feel like to hold a piece of the earth that somehow knew the way home? Its legacy perfectly merges the practical and the mystical, reminding us that every great leap in exploration began with a sense of wonder. And so we reach the end of our journey through these 21 transformative tools, from the portable universe of the astrolabe to the living guidance of a messenger pigeon. Each one represents a different conversation with the world, a unique way of asking and answering that most human of questions: Where are we and how do we find our way? Each tool was a quiet rebellion against the unknown, a deliberate act of turning fear into a charted course. What unites the astrolabe and the lodestone, the camel and the tide board, is not just their function, but the profound human creativity they represent. They are monuments to our ability to listen to the world and build an answer, transforming an environmental challenge like a starless night into an opportunity for discovery through the Nocturnal or the Sunstone. This was never a solitary endeavor. The cross-staff's geometry, perfected in Europe, built upon principles explored by Arab astronomers, whose celestial maps in turn informed the charts guiding Chinese treasure fleets. It was a sprawling, global conversation, a collaboration and competition across cultures that blended intimate local knowledge, like a Polynesian navigator's feel for currents, with a gathering wave of global innovation. Historians of this era see beyond the brass and wood, arguing that the true breakthrough was the human spirit itself, a mixture of relentless curiosity and sheer resilience that drove societies to reach across daunting distances. The very design of the magnetic compass traveling from Chinese workshops to European ships encapsulates this shared journey, enriching maritime traditions for everyone and making travel safer for all. How do these ancient solutions echo in our modern quests? The same ingenuity that read polarized light in a crystal now guides rovers on Mars, and the dead reckoning of a wooden traverse board finds its direct descendant in the inertial navigation systems of submarines exploring the lightless deep. This broader perspective reveals a timeless truth that exploration is a fundamental human pursuit, a continuous thread connecting the Viking longship to the starship, all fueled by the simple, audacious need to find our way. These 21 tools were more than a collection of instruments. They were the shared vocabulary of an emerging global conversation. Each one, from the humble lead line to the sophisticated astrolabe, played a vital and irreplaceable role in charting our world. Together, they did not just enable historic voyages, they actively dismantled the idea of a disconnected planet. This ingenuity conquered the vastest oceans, fostering unprecedented cultural exchanges and fueling economic growth that linked continents for the first time. The explorer Thor Heyerdahl captured this spirit perfectly when he noted, "Borders, I have never seen one, but I have heard they exist in the minds of some people." These ancient tools were the proof, breaking barriers not with force but with shared discovery. They united humanity by demonstrating that the sea was not a wall but a bridge. Their legacy is not confined to museums. It lives on in every signal from a global positioning satellite and every digital map on your phone. The fundamental questions they answered, of where we are and how we find our way, are the very same questions that now guide rovers on Mars and probes into deep space. So as we look back at these marvels of ancient navigation, we must also look forward. What uncharted territories call to us now, whether in the depths of our own oceans or the vastness between the stars? What new tools will we create to answer that timeless call? If you enjoyed this voyage through history, subscribe for more deep dives into the past and share your own favorite navigation tool from our journey in the comments